This is Optimal Startup Daily, Episode 108, a training program for single tasking and focus, Part 1, by Babauta of ZenHabits.net. And I'm Dan, I'm your host and narrator, and welcome back to another edition of Optimal Startup Daily, where I read to you from some of the best startup and entrepreneurial blogs anywhere. And thank you to Email Octopus, which gives you all the essential tools you need to get started with email marketing, including customizable sign-up forms, autoresponders, and list segmentation. We tried it, and we were super impressed with how easy it is to get started. Right now, Email Octopus is offering Optimal Startup Daily listeners 50% off of their first month. Visit emailoctopus.com/OSD or quote code OSD50 at sign-up. For 50% off your first month of email marketing, visit emailoctopus.com/OSD or quote code OSD50 at sign-up. Now, today's author is Babauta, and I narrated him quite a bit over on Optimal Finance Daily over the years. And this post from Leo is a bit longer than a typical article that I read to you on this show, so I'm going to break it up into two parts. So with that, let's hear part one as we optimize your life. A training program for single tasking and focus, Part 1, by Babauta of ZenHabits.net. If you're a regular reader of this blog, you know that I heartily believe in giving your full focus to one task at a time. Single tasking and focus are at the heart of my productivity method. Pick one important task and give it your entire focus. Finish that, or at least a chunk that you choose to work on right now, and then do the same with the next task. There's simply no better way to get things done, one important task at a time. Even small tasks benefit from single tasking with focus. But knowing this and actually doing it are two different things. There are lots of things we know we should do, but putting them into practice and being consistent about it are simply much harder. I think the answer is in intentional training. We aren't good at doing things we know we should do. That's obvious. But how do we get better? By not trying? By trying, failing, and then not learning from the failure, but instead being critical of ourselves about failing? Most of us just keep repeating the same mistakes, don't get better, and don't understand why we can't get better. So, what if we trained ourselves to get better? There are a number of important ideas in training that we can use to get better at single tasking and focusing. 1. Train in small doses to start with. 2. Train at the easy level and only progress with mastery. 3. Train repeatedly as perfectly as you can. 4. Use the failure as feedback and adjust. 5. Vary the training. 6. Practice regularly instead of allowing yourself to forget. And 7. Focus on micro skills. Instead of training your entire baseball swing, focus on one part at a time. With those ideas, we're going to train ourselves to get better at single tasking with full focus. The focus training method. First, ask yourself whether this is important enough to train yourself in. Do you really care about finding focus, or is everything fine as it is? If it's not fine, what difficulty does it cause you? Is it worth it to train yourself to relieve that difficulty? Do you care deeply about this? Remember that as you practice and feel like skipping the training. Now, here's the training method I recommend. 1. Set yourself to train in 5 to 10 minute bursts 2 to 5 times a day, every day. There's a temptation to train for an hour or 30 minutes because 5 to 10 minutes seems silly, but we're not attempting a marathon just yet. We want to train ourselves before we attempt a marathon. So set your practice for 5 to 10 minute intervals of full focus, then 5 minutes of break, then another interval, and so on. Let 2 of these short sessions a day be your minimum, even on weekends or when you're traveling. 2. Train at the easy level. Don't start with hard tasks. If writing your book is such a hard task that you really dread doing it, don't start with that. Or maybe it's doing your taxes or finances, or writing a difficult report or letter. Instead, start with easier tasks that won't cause you to panic or totally dread doing it. You can work your way up to the hard tasks after a week or two, and when you do, just start in small doses, 5 to 10 minutes. Use any failures as really important feedback for adjustment. If you get distracted or pulled away from the task, that's completely okay. The only failure is the failure to learn from your mistakes. Failure is actually super important for training. If you're not failing, you're probably not pushing yourself into new learning. Failure is how we get better in training, notice what went wrong, and figure out how to adjust. Every time you mess up, think of this as a big golden opportunity and relish the idea of reviewing what happened and seeing how you can adjust and improve. Distracted by Facebook? Block it. Disconnect from the internet. Give your spouse the wireless router. Tell people on Facebook that you won't be on Facebook until 5 p.m. each day. Figure out what you need to do and adjust. 4. Mix up the training. There's value in repeated training, but studies have shown that we learn best when we vary the training. Try to focus for 5 minutes one session, then 10 minutes the next. Try to focus on writing in one session, then reading in another, then writing an important email in a third session. Keep the difficulty level about the same, but mix up the tasks and even the micro skills that you practice. 5. Focus on 2 to 3 micro skills at a time, which I'm going to get into in the next post. Each practice session, just focus on a couple micro skills, then mix it up in the next practice session. Eventually, you'll get so good at certain micro skills that you don't need to think about them. They'll just be easy. Then you can move on to others. You can lengthen the training sessions, but no need to alter the number of sessions for a while, as you get better at the training and start to master the micro skills. Don't be in a rush to lengthen the training, but when you do, just add 5 minutes to the session. So you might start with 5 10-minute sessions. Then after a couple weeks, try 10 15-minute sessions, and so on. I wouldn't recommend going longer than 30 minutes unless you do work that requires you to keep everything in your head, a complex mental model, and taking breaks is actually detrimental to the task. The micro skills. Hear that in tomorrow's episode. You just listened to part 1 of the post titled A Training Program for Single Tasking and Focus by Leo Babauta of ZenHabits.net. Now, 2020 was interesting, to say the least, so let's start 2021 off on the right foot. If you own a startup, let this be the year you switch to better payroll. Gusto wasn't just built for small businesses, it was built for the people behind them. Their online payroll is so easy to use. Gusto can automatically calculate paychecks and file all your payroll taxes, which means you have more time to run your business. Plus, Gusto does way more than payroll. Gusto helps with time tracking, health insurance, 401ks, onboarding, commuter benefits, offer letters, access to HR experts. Well, you get the idea. And let me tell you, it is super easy to set up and get started. 3 out of 4 customers say they run payroll in 10 minutes or less, our Optimal Living Daily team included. And if you're moving from another provider, they can transfer all of your data for you. It's no surprise 94% of customers are likely to recommend Gusto. And here's the best part. Because you're a listener, you get 3 months totally free. All you have to do is go to gusto.com/OSD. Again, that's gusto.com/OSD, and I'm telling you, you're going to love Gusto. Get started today. gusto.com/OSD. And again, we're going to hear the rest of Leo's post in tomorrow's show, so make sure that you're subscribed to this podcast and you'll get that episode automatically. And I mentioned earlier that I narrated Leo quite a bit on Optimal Finance Daily. Well, he was actually one of the first authors we started narrating across all of our shows. He writes about personal development and money, health, relationships, business, and advice, just like the 6 podcasts we currently have. So you're going to hear his articles across all of our shows regularly, and we still haven't run out of his content. Plus, Leo's a great guy, and he's got a really unique story of being an overweight smoker who decided to go vegan, lost 65 pounds, and became a marathon runner and business owner, all while having 6 kids. He's originally from Guam, but moved to San Francisco in 2010, and you can see him featured in the Netflix documentary Minimalism, a topic he talks about regularly on his blog. So for a lot more, come by ZenHabits.net, and thanks again to Leo for letting us share his work. And that's going to do it for me today. Thank you so much for being a regular listener of this show and any or all of our shows. That's, of course, what keeps us going. So have a great rest of your day, and I'll catch you back here tomorrow for the Sunday show, where I'm going to finish up Leo's post and where your optimal life awaits.